Morning, David.
Morning, John.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're recording this just so you are aware,
Okay.
and hopefully we'll be getting it available for wait, I've got the last two have not been made available yet. So
Okay. Right. All right. Dottie's going to join me here.
okay, good.
Good morning.
Good morning, Roberta. How are you today?
Good. How you doing?
Hi, Berta.
Hello.
Yeah. Where do you want to sit?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Larry.
Good morning.
Do you want to watch this one or you want to? How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Made a quick trip to meet, visit Thomas yesterday.
Ah,
So cool.
yeah, that was.
Okay, well, it's 9:30, so I'm going to go ahead and start. And anytime you have any questions, don't hesitate to interrupt me. We'll talk about the seller property questionnaire from a little bit from the seller side, but mostly from the buyer side. This is an important document that the buyer is going to try to rely on for making sound decisions about purchasing the property that they're in escrow on. And the information that is being requested of the seller is critical for those decision making. This form was just recently modified in June. So it's added a few additional paragraphs and instructions to the sellers and to the buyers. And there's another form that should be used with this called the BMI form. It's the buyer materials issues, and we'll go over that at the end. But for now, this form itself requires the seller to do much more than they have been required in the past. It also cautions you as an agent to not offer information or direction on how to fill the form out. We are not qualified to make judgments for a buyer or seller. We are there to pretty much just make the system work better and make it flow easily. We are not in a position to make any decisions regarding the quality of the property, because we don't know that much about the property. It's not our property that we're selling. The form, and I'm going to go through it, and I just tell you what I do when I meet with a client, whether it be a seller or a buyer. I do go through these forms line by line, making sure that I cover all of the bases, and I do that consistently with all of my clients, so that there ever comes up an issue of how I do it, it's thorough and goes from top to bottom, and make sure that everything is answered as best I can. The first page of the solid property questionnaire has emphasized the fact that the real estate broker or agent is not anything other but a real estate broker or agent. They're not a real estate attorney. We're not contractors in any way. We don't have any way of providing information that relates to the issues that might come up in determining what's a material issue for the property. So in regards to the seller is being told when they fill out this form that they need to carefully review the disclosure information advisory, and before they complete the seller property questionnaire. All sellers of California real estate property are required to provide various disclosures either by contract or by statute or case law. Many disclosures must be made within certain time limits. And that's another issue, is timing. All of these forms have to be filled out and provided to the buyers for their ability to review it within a certain time frame. And the contract just dictates what that time frame is. So looking at this form, you want to look at it from right now. This is what the seller is required to do. But I want to talk about the buyers also, making sure that they understand that they have a responsibility, that it is not just accept what's being there. They should be satisfied on the information. Most recently, because of the way the market has been and the buyers have been anxious to buy, a lot of things have been overlooked when they're doing reviews of the property and following up on inspections. They have wanted to buy the property more than they've worried about the condition of the property in some cases. So again, we're not in a position to tell them that they shouldn't do that. It's their decision, but they have to take that responsibility. This form is intended to make sure that the seller tells the buyer everything that they know about the property. And this new form emphasizes much more than the previous form did. They're told to fill out this form, and this form can be filled out in person or electronically. So it depends on the situation. The buyers are given notice too that this form is to give them as much information, more information about known material or significant items affecting the value or desirability of the property, and eliminate any misunderstandings about the condition of the property. They're going to be taking the seller's word that this is as much information that they know about the property, and that anything else that they want to know, they're going to have to follow through with inspections. Things that the buyer thinks are important may not be important to a seller, and the seller may not think the things that they are important to them are important to a buyer. So again, each side has to make a decision when we're there to facilitate the process. And again, the seller can only tell what they know. Neither side should speculate that something is one way or another. And again, under 3, the last sentence here is sellers' disclosures are not a substitute for your own investigations, personal judgments, or common sense. That's for the buyer to understand that. When they're filling out, the seller has the responsibility to answer a yes or no. And that's the answers that they can give. If the answer is usually a yes, it requires further explanation, either on this form or on an additional form. When they're being asked the questions cover number 5 here are the documents that the seller is aware of, and that would include prior inspections. When the seller bought the home, they probably had inspections done, and those inspections now are expected to be provided to the buyer, the new buyer, if they're available. Any warranties, any maintenance recommendations, any estimates, any studies, surveys, or other documents, whether prepared in the past or present, including any previous transaction, and whether or not a seller acted upon them. In other words, did the seller get information that they were supposed to fix, certain things were wrong with the house or problematic that should have been taken care of, or they thought they were going to take care of when they bought the home. And they need to disclose whether they did take action to fix those things. Any improvements on the property, any documents that relate to improvements on the property, any information regarding easement, encroachments, or boundary disputes. Anything, whether it's been orally discussed or in writing. So it's very demanding of a seller to give this information. Any statutorily or contractually required information, again, talks about a death on the property within the last 3 years, except if it was AIDS, they can't disclose that. Anything that the government, if there's been anything related to meth, if the house was a meth house, or any contamination, it's very hard to eliminate the contamination. So it's very serious. And again, a buyer should investigate. And if they come up with an answer, it says, yes, there was some meth issues, they should seriously consider getting as much information as they can to make the proper decision whether to continue on with the purchase of the house. Any controlled substances on or beneath the property, whether the property is located or adjacent to an industrial use zone area, whether the property is affected by a nuisance created by an industrial use zone, and whether the property is located within 1 mile from a federal or state ordinance location. If the property is a condominium, there's information that has to be provided there if there's available. Any insurance claims affecting the property within the last 5 years must be disclosed. And when you're talking to your buyers, these are things that they should understand that are very important for their able to make a decision. Anything that affects the title of the property, any plumbing fixtures that are non-compliant, and any material facts or defects affecting the property not otherwise disclosed to the buyer. And if there is anything like that, there needs to be an explanation. And repairs, alterations, modifications. These are information that needs to be provided to a buyer, and all of the information can be provided by receipts, by contracts that were carried out to make repairs and things like that. Any systems, any appliances, any leases on certain systems and things like that. Solar systems, water softener systems, water purifying systems, any alarm systems or propane tanks and things like that. Propane tanks are not usually the property of the owner. They're usually leased, so it's something people have to understand too. Any alternative septic system on or serving the property. If there's been any relief provided, financial relief because of insurance claims or settlements, either from the government, local, state, or private agencies, it's important that this information be known. There's laws that affect certain things that a new buyer may have to follow through on what happened prior to their purchase. And the previous seller may have signed agreements in order to get the relief that they need to fix things as a result of damage from floods, earthquakes, or other disasters. And the new buyer could be held responsible to make sure that they're following through on anything that they've done. Otherwise, they could be asked to reimburse the government or whatever agency provided the funds. Water related and mold issues. This is a big issue in Humboldt County, whereby we have a number of constantly wet areas. And underground springs, we have them throughout the city of Eureka, where areas are being affected by water intrusion on properties and below homes and things like that. Where I live, just a few blocks away, there are several homes that have water constantly being an issue for homeowners, where springs are flowing underneath those homes that they have. Number of homes have had to have constant repairs being done because of it. Anything that is related to pets, animals, anything with pests, anything that's been done to treat and to eradicate pests or odors, or repair damage due to any of those things. These again are things that, like, if there's been pets in a home and they've been there for a reasonably long time, there's a likelihood that there is a lot of odor from those cats or dogs that you just can't get rid of unless you seal the floors and things like that. And the local flooring people have the ability to do that. So again, this is something that may be a problem. You walk into a home and you have a big odor smell, and it may affect but the buyer likes the home a lot, but they say that's one thing that bothers them. Again, there are fixes for it, but it's expensive to a certain extent, and it can be asked for by the buyers to have the sellers do that. So again, it's something, if the home is really attractive to the buyers, those are things that can be done. But again, these are things that you can suggest that they follow up with investigations. You don't suggest that they do those things. You suggest that they follow up and investigate the possibilities of what they would like to have done to make things reasonable for them to move into the home. Any boundaries affecting the property, any access to the property, either completely or without, with or without permission, has to be disclosed. Many properties have PG&E easements allowing access to the property or over the property or next to the property and things like that. Anything that the seller currently uses that doesn't belong to them, any property that they are possibly adjacent to that they're using, they've extended a garden or they've extended something else. Again, they have to clearly explain those things. Any landscaping, pools and spas, again, sometimes there is landscaping done that a buyer expects to have when they buy the property. Here is an area where if the seller is planning on taking some plants with them, they should make sure that it's disclosed and that these things are not part of the sale. Any sprinkler systems, any pool related issues, spas, any previous defects, leaks, cracks, repairs, or any things with sprinklers and things like that need to be disclosed. If the property is a condominium, which we have very few of here in Humboldt County, these areas are things that need to be disclosed by the sellers and explained if any of them affect any homeowners association, or if it's in a planned unit development called a PUD. Any common areas, fitness centers, walkways, things like that, that affect the property, how well maintained those things are. CC&Rs and deed restrictions, all of those things should be disclosed. The CC&Rs have a lot of rules and regulations that need to be complied with. Any pending or proposed dues increases, insurance availability, if there's some reason why insurance may not be offered or made available, that it would affect obviously a buyer's lending ability. And so again, the CC&Rs are deed restrictions or restrictions that HOA, the homeowners association, has authority over and can impose rules and regulations that must be complied with. Any relationship to the titles, ownership, liens, and legal claims. Making sure that titles are free and clear. Leases, anything that's a leased item or a liened item that could be an issue in clearing a sale. If there are any awareness of past, present, or pending lawsuits, even if it's just threatened, any settlements, mediations, anything else that affects legal issues. Any features of the property shared in common with adjacent landowners, such as walls, fences, and driveways. Most fences are on a property line, so they're shared. And depends on how they're structured. They may be the responsibility of the buyer to take care of them in the future. Any encroachments, easements, boundary disputes, any private transfer fees, if there's any fees that are involved in the property. 15G talks about any PACE liens such as Hero or or other liens in the property securing a loan to pay for an alteration, modification, replacement, improvement, remodel, or material repair of the property. These are loans sometimes that the PACE program allows owners of property to install solar or other types of green energy savings and things like that. And they're quite expensive, and they have a long-term payback, and they're incorporated into the monthly payments that someone is making on their property by the seller that is selling the property. And it's over and above the loan costs. And a new buyer may be required to take those on. Many of them require them to be paid off before the sale of the property. But again, this is something that needs to be clearly understood. The Hero, I forgot what the Hero loan, HERO loan program is one that affects the purchase of things like I mentioned about solar energy panels and things like that. The loan for those things are added to the tax bills of the property, and they become the first position in any disputes. If something has to be collected, should there be a default, they have a first place situation priority. And HERO stands for Home Energy Renovation Opportunity. And when a property is being sold, usually the HERO loan can be demanded. In other words, it can be required to be paid off. Or arrangements can be made, and that's between the buyer and the provider of the HERO loan. But like I said, it becomes a tax lien, and it's very demanding to make sure that it's paid off. The SCEIP is related to Sonoma County, and it's again, it's a Sonoma County Energy Independence Program. That's what the SCEIP stands for. And it's a 10 to 20 year loan, usually around 6.99%. And again, it's similar to the HERO loan, but it's for Sonoma County. So, but again, it's something that has to be investigated, and your buyers should check into it carefully if it's a part of what's being disclosed to them as being a part of the sale. Because they're buying, in addition to the property, they're also buying that particular encumbrance. As far as neighborhoods, anything that's known about nuisances in the neighborhood, they need to be disclosed. It could be minor things, it could be major things, but they have to be disclosed. They have a list here of a lot of things, from traffic to agriculture to noisy machinery, generators, pool equipment, anything that might cause interference with comfort of living in a home. And then any past disputes or present disputes with neighbors, between neighbors, they have to be disclosed. Any governmental issues that may have come up, they are things that need to be clear, explained. Buyers need to be aware of anything that's going to be built in the area. Let's say there's a whole new development of homes or shopping areas or things like that. We have not experienced a lot of those things, but they could be coming up in the future with the growth in our area that is expected because of the various things that are happening with Humboldt Polytech School and the cable information cables coming from Southeast Asia, the wind issues and the fish farm. We're expecting a growth development here, and something's got to be done to provide living and comfort for them, including shopping and things like that. So there are areas that are by, and someone buying a property right now doesn't see that it's happening immediately. But if it's known that it's going to happen in the future, they need to be aware of that, and that will have an effect on making their decision whether they want to live in that area.
John,
Yes,
quick question. Can you back up to page 3, please, on the bottom?
yes, yes.
Okay, it was well, maybe a little bit more. Okay. I saw something about underground gas lines, et cetera, on, let me find it here. Go down a little. Well, I guess I lost it. There was an explanation on it was around, it didn't necessarily say, oh, there
Right
it is.
here, right here, under
Yeah,
16A,
gas. Yes.
right here.
Yes. It says, if you have, like, there's a lot of pink flags around town right now where a subcontractor is marking off gas lines and stuff for PG&E for possible. What is this on underground gas pipelines? What is that saying? I guess.
Okay, there throughout the city and throughout the county, that's the gas is provided to homes by underground gas services. And there are some areas that have larger supply lines. And then the gas is distributed from there to smaller pipes directly to homes and things like that. So if there's everything's almost all gas lines are underground.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember in San Bruno, a few years ago, there was a big explosion because so PG&E now is going through every place that they have any services and checking the lines and replacing those lines with modern piping. So that would be what that addresses. I'm my understanding, but any underground pipe would be anything that services that gas lines.
So we would have to check. Sorry, go ahead.
There are some areas that are if you go up on Humboldt Hill and other areas are like that, where there are large supply lines that are being transmissioned to other areas. So they're not necessarily being used for the homes that are there, but they're being, PG&E is using those pipes to forward the gas to other areas. So again, there's some places that have larger supply lines and they have taken on an easement on a lot of properties where they have I'm trying to think of the right word, control boxes and things like that on the gas lines to make sure things are being done.
So that means this question most often is going to be checked yes.
Yeah, pretty much every on yeah, it's going to be checked, yes, and there's going to have to be some sort of an explanation. Whatever they know, are they aware of? Yes.
Okay,
And then PG&E has pipes, has lines that are being, that they use. That's, that, I don't know whatever other answer might be. Again, we're not in a position to tell them what the answer should be.
right.
If they're aware of it, they can put that down. And again, anything that they don't have an explanation for, but that they're aware of, they can put, and again, I want to caution, I don't want to say what they should put, okay? But anything that comes up in these forms that the buyer sees that is a problem, that's a question on their part, they need to follow through and get explanations for themselves.
Okay.
So they can ask for further information, or do further investigations on their own through inspections. And again, when they're having the home inspected, the inspectors should, if they're aware what there's gas lines or something like that, they can bring it up to the inspector and say, can you give us some information about that?
Okay.
I've had situations where there've been water lines that had to be further explained. An inspector found that water lines were coming into their homes differently than they normally do. And it was because there was a transmission box out in the middle of the street that serviced a number of homes, and the pipes were there. And so they had to they were able to follow up and get that information from inspectors and things like that. And they could go further into the city to find out what the situation is with that. So,
Okay.
yeah. So as far as going down here at the government things, any bonds, assessments, or fees that don't appear on property taxes that could affect the property, things like that, if they're getting billed for something from somewhere. Any government requirements, future government requirements, that they're aware of. There's a lot of talk right now about laterals, things like that. Those are things that they need to be made aware of. Anything they know about that. Any historical areas have to be clearly explained, make sure that there's a full understanding of what the responsibilities of the buyer is. Let's see, water surcharges or penalties by private or public water suppliers. Any differences between the name of the city and a postal mailing address and the city which has jurisdiction over the property. I don't know if Cutton, Eureka, Humboldt Hill, they're all part of Eureka, if that makes a difference. They all have the same zip code. And then any occupant of the properties that affect like smoking or vaping, whether past or present, any property used for any alteration, modifications, improvements, remodeling, or material changes of the property due to cannabis cultivation or growth, any past or present known material facts or significant items affecting the value otherwise described herein. If there's other things that they don't have enough room to fill out this paper, this form, if you check here, it'll add additional pages for it. And again, this cautions the seller that the seller has done everything they can to give the right answers, and they sign off on this, and the buyer receives a copy of it. Now, let me stop sharing this. And let me go back to I don't want to lose you guys, so. Shoot. Do I still have you?
I have a question.
Yes.
So on the pets and animals and pests, where it says insects or pests on or in the property, like for instance, I've had a ant, my pest control guy comes and sprays, once every 2 months or whatever. I don't know if I have an ant problem anymore. So would that be disclosed, it's been
Yeah,
15 years or
it would
something?
be because it's past, present, or future.
Okay.
Anything you've had any issues regarding that.
Right.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah, I remember
You
when
see,
Eric, a buddy of mine that actually worked for Mean Tree, and he was saying he had sold a property and they didn't disclose that there was an ant problem. And then like months down the road, there was like a huge ant problem. So the sellers had to end up going back and paying for a year's worth of pest control or
right.
something like that, because it
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
closed.
Yeah. And it's much more restrictive even now. I mean, we need to be very cautious. Every meeting we have, we hear from Larry or Randy, a constant talking about potential legal issues. And so we need to be very careful about what we say and what we do so that we don't get ourselves caught into something. But we also need to caution our sellers and buyers that they have a responsibility, especially sellers, that they have the great responsibility of providing information about their property that clearly informs the buyers.
Right.
And if it means that the sale's not going to go through, that's going to be the result of it. That's the way it's going to be. But a buyer is not going to buy something they don't want. Now, do you see this? Do all issues on the phone? This form on your screens?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure because I never for sure. This is the other form I mentioned. It's mentioned on the front page of the seller property questionnaire. And this is for the buyers. When they're going through the property questionnaire, they come up with an issue that they think is important to them, they need to advise us of that. And it's their responsibility. And this is a great form because it also clearly states what we, the broker and the agents, responsibilities and abilities are. What we are and are not. We are realtors. That's our main abilities, and it's limited to that. We have no way of providing legal advice, tax advice, insurance advice. Every one of those things should be addressed by those appropriate servicers, providers. So this form is something that can be filled out by, it should be filled out by the buyers to express concerns. It can be done also before they buy a property or look at a property, in that they can tell us what they want or don't want specifically in a property, or that they have concerns about. And the part down here, the scope of the broker duty, is very important from our standpoint, from our legal responsibilities. And it gives the responsibility for the buyers to clearly give us information that we can depend on as we look for properties for them, or as we find a property that they are concerned about something that might prevent them from buying a property. So again, this is usually it's something that where the property they've already made an offer on and it's already in escrow. So it's something that but again, it can be used for prior information to property too. So again, by getting it in writing, we get more reliable direction from a client. It helps us to make sure that we're following through on their most important desires. And it doesn't limit anything as far as they could have more information, more issues and things like that. But it brings up the most important material issues. The material issues is a legal term that is stressed. It's stressed in initial training. When I talk to students in my classes at CR, we make sure material issues is addressed and understood how important those things are. And also in the classes that I teach, the legal, and like I say, we hear it every week almost from Larry and Randy about legal responsibilities and how our problems. So I do the same thing when I'm teaching and making sure people understand how critical it is that we protect ourselves and our brokers and make sure we don't do things that expose us to legal compromise in any way. Or so.
So John,
Yes,
we are the buyer is filling this out, or the seller?
this particular form is for the buyer.
So it's filled out by the buyer.
Right. You give them the form, they fill it out. And this, what it is, it's intended to give us information to help us address any issues that they have concerning any material issues. And again, material issues covers a broad range of things, but it really means the things that are important to a property that is being purchased. It's things that a buyer is most concerned about.
Okay,
So again, go ahead.
okay, so the buyer's stating the things they're most concerned about.
Right.
And what is there any response to this, or is this just saying these? I mean, I'm just confused by. I understand the buyer has material concerns. He's stating his concerns. Now what?
Okay. This is information. It's not something that the next step after they fill this out is to follow through with inspections and things like that, so that those issues that they bring up are clarified. All right, so that at some point in time, either they are satisfied and they want to continue on with the process, or there are things that cannot satisfy them and they feel they cannot buy the property. And if they can, it has to fall within their ability to cancel if they choose to. So again, it's something it's an additional information from them to us. It's also information when we sign off on this that says that they understand what our responsibilities are, and that they can't expect us to be doing something that we cannot do as an agent or a broker. So it's additional caution for us, protecting us, but it's also information that helps us to help them continue to pursue the purchase of the property. Okay. Any other questions?
Do you routinely use this form, John, or do you routinely offer this form or solicit information for it?
I have not, but since it came up with the seller property questionnaire. It's on the front of the seller property questionnaire. It's let's see, paragraph 3, note to the buyer's purpose is to give more information about the known material or significant items affecting the value or desirability of the property, and to help eliminate misunderstandings about the condition of the property.
Okay.
And then the second point of it is something is important to you. Be sure to put your concerns and questions in writing using this form. So again, if a buyer says, hey, I'm worried about the roof, doesn't look like it's the right, it doesn't look right to me. We need to get that inspected and stuff like that. So again, it's additional paperwork, but it's additional information for us to make sure that we're covering the bases that are important to them. And we work together on that by helping them to find inspectors or whatever they think they might need so that they can know the next step that they have to do to satisfy their concerns.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, the updated seller property questionnaire added a number of things. Let me see if I have. Yeah, it was on the previous form for the seller property questionnaire, but it's very seldom used. But in some of the discussions I've talked with CAR about, again, they brought it up. CAR attorneys want everything in writing and recommend that you get everything that you can in writing. So this is additional support for that. And it highlights the things that are most important to the buyers and that we talk about, make sure we address those things. So I always follow up with an email once we've done something. If it's not on a form that needs to be signed off on, I will usually send an email to the client saying, having followed up on the information you requested on the BMI form, dated such and such regarding and this item has been checked off for your satisfaction. So that way you've covered it and that sort of thing. But again, it's always that you have something in writing that you can fall back on to protect your status in the process and also protect the buyer's status in the process. So, and it gives them something concrete that they feel that they've informed us that they want to follow up further on this. And again, we'll help them to get satisfaction to the point that they're happy to buy or prefer to cancel, depending on what the situation is. But again, time is of the essence on all these things, and make sure that people do things in a timely fashion so that things can be handled without delays and that they fall within the time frame so that something doesn't slip by and they end up having to buy the property because they didn't act in fast enough time. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm through for today. Okay. If you have any other questions about this, don't hesitate to contact me. Hey, Dottie.
I just wanted you to know I was here.
I knew.
Thank you, John.
Thank you much.
So, all right, and we'll do something next, find another forum or something else to talk about. And if
Next
you
when?
have any things that you pardon?
Next, when is the next one?
Next Thursday, same
Oh,
time,
okay.
same place. 9:30 next Thursday. I'll if there's any changes, I'll let you know.
Okay.
But if you have any specific areas of concern that you want to discuss or you want me to follow up on, let me know, email me, let me know. I'll follow up on those things and I'll put together a packet of information for a specific day and we can work on those things together.
Okay, I sent you a.
And I'm always,
Oh, go ahead. I sent you a message with my email to wonder if you can email me sample forms of these so I can get more familiar with them.
are you on, do you have access for?
Not yet. We wanted to, Larry and I chose to go through all the trainings first before I signed up and started paying for everything and,
Sure. Okay, yeah, no, I'll send a sample out to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're more than welcome. Okay, any other
All right.
questions? All right, well, we'll see you next week. Hopefully you have a great week and
You too.
be successful.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.